Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Bartley Broadcast, my personal show where I talk about everything I love in the world of film mostly, but I also talk a little bit about TV, comic books, audiobooks, stuff from my past, and what's going on with me in general. I am your host, Jacob Bartley, and this is brought to you by Apocalypse Movies, the movie-based YouTube channel where we review movies, talk about movie news, and have a bunch of little shows like the Padawan Podcast, the Comic Hero Talk Podcast, where we talk about things we love. So check us out if you haven't. But anyways, we're here to talk about movie news, TV news, and what I've been reading and watching and stuff like that. Before we jump into our official topics, how you all doing? I'm doing pretty good. Like I said last week, been really busy. 2 jobs, school, bunch of stuff going on. Fantasy football. Man, how about that Niners and Rams game last night? Look, I'm a 49ers fan, but the 49ers aren't that good right now. So it's hard to be excited about them. But I knew last night was going to be a good game because it's 2 teams who are still finding their footing. 2 teams that aren't that good. So, and the Rams look pretty good. They're not bad. But when the Niners put 30 plus points on them, obviously they're not that great. But it was a pretty good game. It went down to the end of the game, and I have Carlos Hyde in my fantasy football league. So, hey, he balled out last night. What can I say? That's exciting. Yeah, and I'm from Northern California. That's where Apocalypse Movies is based, in Sacramento. So, yeah, pretty close to San Francisco. That's why I'm a Niners fan. Grew up in California watching the Niners and stuff like that. But, hey, maybe you hate football, so I'll move on from that. But, yeah, I've been pretty good in general. Hope you all been doing good. I did pick up one more collectible last week, and that is something I mentioned I was looking for, the Obi-Wan Kenobi action figure, the Star Wars The Last Jedi toy line. Not that he's in the movie, I didn't say that. I'm just saying that's the toy line that came out with The Last Jedi toys, and I finished my collection. There's plenty more of those figures, but I wanted to get the Rey, the Luke, the Kylo, the Yoda, and the Obi-Wan, and I got all of them. So, mission complete. Now I really want to get the Luke and Rey Black Series, the big figures, like that Thrawn one right there. It's like that size. I really want to get the Rey and Luke one, but I'll keep my eye out for those ones. One thing that I experienced last week, I actually went on Friday, so later on after I put up, the Bartley Broadcast last week, I went to the Marvel Live event. It's kind of like it's not, I don't want to say it's a play, but it's like a performance and like action stunts, acrobats and stuff like that. But my expectations weren't too high. I thought it was going to be cheesy. So I went to this Marvel Universe Live thing. I'm sure you guys have heard of these. They probably come to your town too. And I was like, this is going to be cheesy. It's actually really awesome. High production level. They tell a story like, I don't want to give any spoilers, but basically Doctor Strange comes floating out in the beginning, and he gives like this exposition and tells us, and it's like a whole story. So it's like you're watching a movie in a way, but you're seeing this whole live action play out, and it's awesome. It had the Guardians of the Galaxy, Doctor Strange, all the main Avengers. It had the Hulk. It had Iron Fist. It had like all these different characters. Loki. It was awesome, and me and my uncle and my cousin ended up getting like Groupon tickets for $20 each, and we had really good seats. So if you can find a deal for like $20 on a Groupon, I highly recommend going to the Marvel Universe Live. It was so entertaining. It surprised me. I did not expect it to be that good. All right, so let's move on to our first official segment, and that is what I've been watching lately. My editorial segment is on the Lord of the Rings, and I did rewatch The Fellowship of the Ring to talk about that, but I'll save that for that segment. One new release that I saw recently, and I put up my spoiler review, so you can go check that out on Apocalypse Movies. I won't talk about spoilers right here, but that is Mother, the Darren Aronofsky film Mother. This movie is getting so much controversy. I ended up really liking it. Walking out of the theater, I liked it, and honestly, it's because I like weird shit. I like weird, out there shit. So even though I didn't know exactly what the movie was about, I still enjoyed it, and I had my own interpretation of it. And thinking what I thought it was about, walking out of the theater, I was like, oh, that's a pretty good, entertaining, me liking weird shit, enjoyable film. But then I got out of the film and I researched it, what it's really about, and that's when I'm like, oh, that made me realize, this is a really good movie. It's not going to be in my top 10 movies of the year, not even close, but I'm just saying, I appreciate what Darren Aronofsky was doing. A lot of people didn't. Our own Jake Berlin, he walked out of the theater before the movie ended. I wasn't with him, but I think he went by himself or with somebody, but he walked out of the theater before the movie ended because it just wasn't, he wasn't feeling it. So this movie is divisive. I mean, for the most part, it's getting negative reviews and fan reactions, but for me, I enjoyed it knowing what it's like. And also, there's a message of the film, and Darren Aronofsky is trying to say something and express a certain feeling about something. And let's just say that I agree with him on what he's trying to say in the film. So that's why I actually end up really enjoying the film. But go check Mother out. I mean, maybe not. A lot of people are saying it's not worth a movie ticket. Maybe go on a $5 Tuesday, or if you have Movie Pass, go check it out. Or wait for it to come on Redbox. But watch it eventually, because I think it's worth watching and then interpreting it for yourself and figuring out if you enjoy the film or not. All right, well, moving on to our entertainment news section, talking about movie news, TV news. Not as long as last week, but we still got some good stuff to talk about. So first up is Linda Hamilton returning to the Terminator franchise with a new trilogy being shepherded by James Cameron and being directed by Tim Miller, the director of Deadpool. So they were at like the re-release of the T2 in 3D or whatever, and Cameron had some comments to say about their upcoming plans for this trilogy, and it's also going to have Arnold back, by the way. So according to THR, this is what James Cameron had to say. As meaningful as she was, talking about Linda Hamilton, to gender and action stars everywhere back then, it's going to make a huge statement to have that seasoned warrior that she's become return. There are 50-year-old, 60-year-old guys out there killing bad guys, but there isn't an example of that for women. Alright, so I have some split feelings about this. On the surface is the idea of them doing a Terminator trilogy, or just a Terminator movie, let's say, with Tim Miller directing, with Linda Hamilton and Arnold returning. Absolutely, that's exciting. Because I love Deadpool. It's one of my favorite comic book movies of all time. That movie's freaking incredible. So I trust Tim Miller as a director. However, I think they're saying that they're going to disregard all of the Terminator movies other than Terminator 1 and Terminator 2. I'm kind of against this idea of people just, rewriting the history of their film franchises, because look, they said they were going to do that with Alien. They said they were going to do that. Now they're saying they're going to do this with Terminator. A lot of franchises that are returning to prominent franchises from back in the day, from the 80s, 90s, stuff like that. They're saying, oh, we're just going to disregard these other films and only focus on the good ones. That's dangerous to me, because yes, the idea of the Linda Hamilton coming back is cool. Absolutely. I'm going to be excited for that movie when it comes out. But this idea of just retconning an entire franchise, like the bad movies in a franchise, is bad to me. And I know it's different, but let's say, for example, in the MCU, right? The MCU, for the most part, has had great films. There's been a few hiccups, in my opinion, and also in critic reviews, fan reviews. So let's say, let's just say right after Thor: The Dark World came out, right? It wasn't beloved by fans and critics. I think it has a 60-something score on Rotten Tomatoes. It's definitely weak compared to the other films of the MCU. Let's say right after Thor: The Dark World came out, they made the next MCU movie, right? Let's just say it's Avengers Age of Ultron. So they're like, okay, we're going to make Avengers Age of Ultron, but since Thor: The Dark World didn't get good reception and people didn't like it, we're going to pretend that movie didn't happen, and we're just going to continue on with the MCU. Would you guys be okay with that? I know it's very different, because Terminator franchise is from a long time ago and they're returning to it. Yes, it's different, but it's still the same exact idea. Would you be okay with them saying, with the DCEU saying, Suicide Squad got terrible reviews, terrible fan reactions. Let's just pretend that movie didn't happen and move forward with the DCEU. We'll completely erase that movie, make Suicide Squad 2. Would you be okay with that? If you could, that's fine with you. That's your opinion. That's how you feel. I am not okay with that. So this is not as bad as what they're doing. It's not as bad what they're doing with Terminator, what they plan to do with Alien, all these other franchises that plan to erase the bad movies in their franchises. But when does it end? Is it okay for the DCEU to do that? Is it okay with Marvel to do that? Is it okay with Star Wars to do that? Like, I don't think so, in my opinion. So yes, I'm excited about a Tim Miller, Linda Hamilton, Arnold Schwarzenegger, James Cameron Terminator movie, potentially trilogy. Yes, absolutely. But this idea of erasing the bad films in the film history, I'm not okay with that. Anyways, and this next story ties directly into that. So another actress, Jamie Lee Curtis, is supposedly returning to the new Halloween sequel, movie, reboot. I don't know. So this movie, basically, John Carpenter is involved, and David Gordon Green and Danny McBride are working on this movie together. Now, you might laugh at that idea, but if you've heard them talk about it, they're very passionate. They're taking it very seriously. John Carpenter is behind them doing it. So you got to keep that in mind. It's not going to be a comedy. They're taking it very seriously. They said they want to go back to the roots. And David Gordon Green has directed movies like Pineapple Express and stuff like that. And him and Danny McBride work together a lot. They work together on Eastbound and Down and Vice Principals, stuff like that. So, same thing with the Terminator reboot movie, whatever. Jamie Lee Curtis returning to the Halloween franchise. Yes, that excites me. However, in Halloween Resurrection, spoiler for Halloween Resurrection if you haven't seen it, 1, 2, 3, you've been warned, she dies in Halloween Resurrection. So basically either she survived or they're going to retcon the whole Halloween history and say only the first one existed and now we're going to just tell this story from now on. Or only a couple of them existed, we're going to tell this story from that point on. Same exact idea with Terminator. Am I okay with them rewriting the history of the franchises? I mean, probably going to end up in a better movie for this new Halloween movie, absolutely, but it's dangerous. It's very dangerous. Is it, like I said, is it going to be okay for Justice League 2 to say, all right, Justice League never happened. Let's just say this is the next movie since Wonder Woman. That I'm not okay with that, but I am excited about the Halloween movie, honestly. Michael Myers is my favorite iconic slasher, of all time, honestly. I love him. I like him more than Freddy. I like him more than Jason. It just seemed the most, even though it has fantastical supernatural elements, it seemed the most realistic to me. Jason was this freaking monster who could never, he's just running around, he's like a mini Hulk or something like that. Freddy's in your dreams and stuff like that. Is he real? Is he not? He's cracking jokes the whole time. To me, Michael Myers was the most scary and the one I took the most serious. So I was terrified of Michael Myers as a kid. And the first Rob Zombie one, I actually enjoy as a guilty movie pleasure. It's not a good movie. It's kind of stupid, but I enjoy it as a guilty movie pleasure because I love the Halloween franchise, and it's kind of like a what if scenario. What if we saw Michael Myers' origin story? But the first movie is iconic. I really like it. He's my favorite slasher. Jamie Lee Curtis returning. I'm excited about that. And this movie is being made by Blumhouse, and it releases on October 19th, 2018. So look out for that next Halloween. All right, now we got 2 trailers to talk about. First up is that Tomb Raider trailer. So I've been hearing a lot of mixed things about this trailer, but me personally, I love this trailer. First of all, I love Alicia Vikander. Ever since I saw Ex Machina, I'm like, oh my goodness, this girl is amazing. She was great in The Danish Girl. Definitely deserved that Oscar win. And I love her. Probably my favorite role of her is in The Man from U.N.C.L.E. She is amazing in The Man from U.N.C.L.E. Probably one of the most underrated movies to come out in the last 3 or 4 years. I love that movie and I love her in it. Alicia Vikander is great. So that's why I'm excited for this movie. I'm not a big Tomb Raider fan. I played the games as a kid, yes. I watched the Angelina Jolie movies as a kid, yes. But I'm not like, oh my god, I can't wait for the Tomb Raider movie because it's Tomb Raider. But Alicia Vikander in the Tomb Raider role, absolutely. And this trailer was awesome to me. Look, I didn't want some dark, so serious, adventure movie with Tomb Raider. I feel like that's what people want. I'm like, all right, I want the action to be badass. Action looks badass. I want there to be an adventurous feel to it. There's an adventurous feel to it. I want it to feel like a video game that feels like a video game to a certain extent. And I want it to be fun. I think this looks fun when she's like, "I'll take two." A lot of people are making fun of that line. I think that's great. It's fun. Why is it okay for the Avengers to crack jokes all the time, but it's not okay for a Tomb Raider franchise to wink at the camera and say and do stuff like that? I loved this trailer. I thought the action was great. All the side characters look great. Alicia Vikander looks great. The little jokes look great. Everything looks awesome to me. Now I'm super excited for this Tomb Raider movie, when I was kind of excited about it before because of Alicia Vikander. Alright, the last trailer is a TV trailer, and that is for the Punisher trailer, which as of now does not have a specific release date. We know it comes out in 2017. And if you watch the trailer at the end, it's kind of like, blurring out the release date. To me, it kind of looks like it said 9/20 something. So I was predicting it either came out today or came out next week. So I'm expecting, if it's not out right now already, which I haven't checked Netflix yet, but I doubt it's out because I would have seen it on the news sites or something. But I think it's going to come out next week. If not, maybe sometime in October. Who knows? But that trailer is badass. Like, Daredevil Season 2 is the greatest comic book TV show of all time, in my opinion. And part of the reason is because of Frank Castle, because of Jon Bernthal's portrayal of the Punisher. I think it makes that first quarter of the season amazing. And then I just love everything that happens with Daredevil too. But yeah, this trailer is awesome. It's everything I wanted to see from a Punisher TV. I think the Punisher works so much better in TV. We've seen 2 Punisher movies. While I've enjoyed them to a certain... Well, I haven't seen the second one. I enjoyed the first one, like, kind of as a guilty movie pleasure. But I heard the second one's actually, like, pretty fun, like, action-wise. But, like, obviously it hasn't, like, stuck with audiences. People don't talk about those movies, like, enjoyable comic book movies of all time. So I think The Punisher has a great home on Netflix, on TV, where it can be brutal and also tell a story, like, not week to week, but episode by episode, and kind of stretch out and give more development to Frank Castle's character. I thought this trailer looked amazing. The beginning of it with the music and him losing his family, it kind of reminded me of Logan a little bit. And then just him going ham at the end, like shooting guys, like, I thought it looked awesome. I cannot wait for this series. Alright, moving on to my books and comic books section. By books, I mean audiobooks, because for the most part, I listen to Star Wars audiobooks. And first up, I'm giving an update on Leia, Princess of Alderaan, the Claudia Gray book. I talked about this on the Padawan podcast a little bit last week, but I am loving this book. If you've heard me talk about the audiobooks, the Star Wars audiobooks before, which are canon, which means they're all real history within the Star Wars universe, I've ranked Claudia Gray's books. Both of her books so far, Lost Stars and Bloodline, are in my top 5. Bloodline is number 1. Lost Stars is probably around the 4 or 5 spot. I'm telling you right now, Leia, Princess of Alderaan has the potential, and I'm about halfway through. It has the potential to be my favorite Star Wars canon book, and that is insane. That means Claudia Gray would have written 3 of my top 5 favorite Star Wars audiobooks. That's insane. She's an amazing writer. And also, Leia is my top 2 or 3 favorite Star Wars characters. So, on top of that, like, all of this mixture combined, and I'm so curious about her in her younger days. So this is when Leia's 16, 3 years before A New Hope, and you kind of, first of all, you get to see Leia as a girl, what she was like, how she interacted with people her age, and how the relationship with her parents is, how she feels kind of declined by her parents. You also get to see the spark, the beginnings of the rebellion forming. That, and like, all of this stuff is so important, and it's so crucial to A New Hope, and also what's going on in Star Wars right now, like with the Princess Leia character, and it has implications. There's certain planets that are in this book that are in The Last Jedi. So I love this book. I think it's a must read, and I really recommend picking up Leia, Princess of Alderaan in whatever format you want, whether it's physical book or audiobook. I love the audiobooks because you get to hear the sound effects, the character voices, stuff like that. Alright, moving on to the comic book section today, and I'm going to talk about only 2 comics today. Didn't get a lot to read, and these are actually from last week because I haven't picked up my comics from this week yet. But this week, Captain Phasma #2 came out, so I'm going to review that for next week's, probably for the Padawan podcast, and I'll talk about it on the Bartley Broadcast. But for this week, I have Mr. Miracle #2 and Dark Knight's Metal #2, two DC comics. Now, Mr. Miracle #2. So the first Mr. Miracle came out by Tom King, one of the great comic writers right now, and everybody was freaking out, like, oh my god, this is the best comic of the year, best comic of the summer. And I picked it up, and it took me, like, I went, not through hell, but I went through a lot to get that #1 issue, because it's going to be valuable. So Mr. Miracle #1. I don't know anything about Mr. Miracle. I don't know anything about the New Gods, about Darkseid, about any of that. And I picked up the first issue, and I didn't understand it because I don't know the history of any of this stuff going on, about the boom tubes, the mother boxes, whatever. I don't know about all that. But I wanted to learn about it, so that's why I picked this up. And I was intrigued because it was interesting. But I wasn't like, oh my goodness, I have to pick up the next issue. But I do have the whole series in my saver. I'm going to pick up issue by issue. #2 got a lot more interesting. I forget the name of, is it Granny Goodness? So it's like, it's Mr. Miracle's grandmother. He grew up with her or whatever. And I think Mr. Miracle's name is Scott Free. So Scott Free's grandmother, who grew up with her and stuff like that. Or not, I don't think it's his literal grandmother, but it's somebody who watched over him when he was a kid. I don't know. But this one got a little bit more interesting. Like, I actually connected with the characters. I understood what was going on in the story. It was more direct. The first issue was like all over the place, like weirdo, like you're on shrooms or something. The first issue, like, I don't know what's going on. But this issue was more direct, had more to deal with the characters. I understood what was going on. I got a little bit more history on the New Gods and Scott Free and Mr. Miracle and his brother and Granny Goodness. I don't know if that's her name. I think it is. And the people that he interacts with. So it's getting a lot more interesting. Like, if you ask me, do I have to read Mr. Miracle? Right now, I would say no. But it has the potential to be something that I really, really want to start continuing to read. And I'm going to finish the storyline just to see where it ends up. But something that I'm really digging so far is Dark Knight's Metal #2. I thought the first issue of Dark Knight's Metal was great. This is a big event thing that's going on in the DC Comics with, Batman and the Justice League, Wonder Woman and stuff like that. I thought it was a great issue. Not as good as the first issue, but it still kept me locked in. A lot of stuff going on with Batman and a lot of stuff going on with the multiverse and stuff like that. So, it's definitely weird, and it's definitely cool. I really, really like it. All right, so wrapping up the Bartley Broadcast with my final segment of the week, and that is the editorial segment. I talk about pretty much whatever I want, but this segment is like narrows in on a specific thing. And this week I'm talking about Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Ring, one of my favorite movies of all time. What I've been doing in this editorial segment is basically to give myself content. And I'll switch it up eventually down the line, but I've been running down my favorite movies of all time. Week 1, I talked about Star Wars A New Hope and just Star Wars in general. Week 2, I talked about The Avengers. Week 3, I talked about The 40-Year-Old Virgin. And Week 4, I'm talking about Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Ring, and just Lord of the Rings in general and what it means to me. So The Fellowship of the Ring, it was always my favorite Lord of the Rings movie, and I'll get into why. And I love Lord of the Rings as a whole. But, like, I hadn't rewatched the trilogy in a long time. So I'm like, all right, if I'm going to talk about this movie on this show, I got to at least rewatch Fellowship of the Ring before I do that. And I went into it like, look, I have fond memories of this movie. I love it. But, like, is it going to hold up? And it's been a few years since I watched it. So it's not like I haven't seen it since I was a kid. I was like, is it going to hold up? Am I still going to feel that way about the movie after rewatching it? Because I've rewatched movies that I loved when I was a kid, like the original Mighty Morphin Power Rangers movie, and I rewatched that, and it effing sucks. It's one of the worst movies I've ever seen, and I'll talk about that some other time. Maybe that will be an editorial segment one week. And I love Power Rangers, but that original Mighty Morphin Power Rangers movie from the 90s sucks. Sorry, I love Power Rangers season 1 and 2, love them. But anyways, we're not here to talk about Power Rangers. But anyway, to my point, Lord of the Rings, I was kind of scared. I was like, am I going to not love this movie as much as I do, as much as I remember loving it? I rewatched it. I just finished rewatching it before the show. I like it even more after watching it. I love it even more. It's all the nostalgia factors that I remember are still there, added with me having a better understanding of film now, and just adding all those elements together. This movie is beautiful and amazing. I love it so much. So let me talk about why. And I do have a few negatives, and they're things that I didn't realize or wasn't really aware of when I was a kid. But first of all, the opening of the film with the battle with, you know, the orcs and the, you know, the elves and the humans versus Sauron. That battle is amazing, and the exposition going on while it's happening, and the way Sauron's like smacking guys with his axe or whatever, and like you see like 5 guys go flying. That is awesome. And then you get to the Shire. Look, the Shire, I love the film. It's like I want to go live in the Shire. Like it seems so peaceful and relaxing. You just grab a glass of ale and just party and dance. Like the opening, like after the real opening, and then when you get to the Shire, I love it. The music is so beautiful in this movie in general. All of the scores, the Shire music, like I don't want to call it the Shire music, but you know, the opening when you first see the Shire, and then the music when the orcs are running into battle, doon 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 doon. That all the music is amazing. Like the Star Wars music is my favorite, but the Lord of the Rings music is probably my second favorite of all time. Like I love the music. Ian McKellen as Gandalf is amazing. Like I don't know if I like Ian McKellen more as Gandalf or Magneto. Like I can't decide. I love them both. One other thing that really like stands out to me in this movie is like the way the ring corrupts everyone, and like as soon as it's visible, like everyone's just intrigued by it and staring at it and like being pulled in by it. I think that's really cool. I think it represents the greed of humanity and the greed of man, and how much everyone just wants power. Like I love what the ring represents. Also, one of the greatest parts is the whole sequence in the Mines of Moria. Like holy crap, just them going in there, and then and by the way, I'm already talking about spoilers. So spoilers if you haven't seen Lord of the Rings, Fellowship of the Ring. Yeah, but that whole sequence when they fight the orcs, when they fight the cave troll is awesome. And yeah, the way they take out the cave troll, and like Legolas getting on the cave troll and shooting an arrow in the top of his head, like that is awesome. And I love Orlando Bloom as Legolas in this movie. He's badass. I love all the warrior characters. I love Aragorn. I love Legolas. I love Boromir and the other guy. They're all awesome. Like it's so awesome. There's multiple reasons why the Lord of the Rings original trilogy is way better than the Hobbit trilogy. But one of the main things that stand out is the orcs. How the orcs in the original trilogy are all practical. Like I'm okay with motion capture and CGI and stuff like that. Of course, like it's some of the reasons why some of the movies today are so great. But I just feel like in Lord of the Rings, the orcs look amazing. They feel real. They feel realistic. They're scary. And that main orc at the end, Lurtz, is incredible. I love the look and feel of the orcs, especially in that last battle scene when Aragorn and Boromir and Legolas and they all fight all the orcs. Like that stuff is amazing. Probably one of my favorite characters in all Lord of the Rings is Boromir, and he's played by Sean Bean, because he's not a bad guy, but he's an honorable character, but it's just the ring corrupts him, and he's worried about the status of man. He's afraid that men are going to die out in this world especially if the ring gets back into to Sauron's hands, or eye, I should say. So Boromir, like, he has that moment where he tries to take the ring from Frodo, but it's not like that's not really him. He's being corrupted by the ring. And then he sacrifices himself to save Pippin and Merry, and in turn to help Frodo get away, because he blows the horn or whatever, attracting all the orcs towards him. And then just that whole moment when you see Lurtz shoot the 2 arrows in him, and he's still fighting, and then Lurtz is about to shoot an arrow in his head, and then here comes Aragorn, and the way Aragorn kills Lurtz is incredible. He cuts off his arm and then cuts off his head. I love it. it just, rewatching this movie reminded me how much I love this movie and how much I love Lord of the Rings. I can't wait to finish rewatching the whole trilogy. A couple things that stood out to me that I didn't like. The relationship between Samwise and Frodo. There's elements of it that I like this brotherhood element, but for the most part, they get too like emotional, like they're staring in each other's eyes. I love you, Sam. I'm so glad you're with me. And the way they hug, it's a little weird, and it makes me uncomfortable a little bit. Also, Pippin and Merry. So Pippin and Merry, they're the comedic relief, right? They're funny. I enjoy their characters, and they're very brave in certain moments when they jump on the cave troll, when they run for the orcs to chase them so Frodo can get away. Very honorable, very brave, but they're also very stupid. I forget which one does which, but one of them is throwing rocks in the water when that big octopus creature comes out, and I'm like, what? They're so dumb. And then one of them knocks that skeleton down the well, which has all the orcs come for them in the Mines of Moria. I'm like, if you guys weren't there, or if you guys would just not touch shit or mess around with shit, it would stop the group from getting into so much trouble. Anyways, those are my two negatives of the movie, but this movie still stands out to me as being one of the greatest movies ever made, in my opinion. I love it so much. Still my number 4 movie of all time. But I love it overall, and I love it because it's called The Fellowship of the Ring, and that's the group, the 9 that come together to travel to take this ring to Mordor, and it's about the Fellowship of the Ring. You could say it's the setup movie for the rest of the trilogy, but it's really about the Fellowship of the Ring, and I really, really appreciate that. Alright, well, that's going to wrap up the Bartley Broadcast this week. Thank you all again for watching. Thank you if you're returning. Thank you if you're a new listener. I really appreciate it. I am Jacob Bartley. As always, you can find me on Twitter at @JacobBartley_. You can find me on this YouTube channel, Apocalypse Movies. We've got a bunch of good stuff going on here. We got the Padawan podcast with Jake Berlin. I'm usually on that every other week. We have the Comic Hero Talk podcast, where we talk about comic book movie news, comic book TV shows, and comics in general. And we got movie reviews, a bunch of stuff going on here at Apocalypse Movies. Check us out on iTunes. You can find our shows on iTunes, our main shows, and our reviews on iTunes. You can download for free. Subscribe to us on iTunes. We would really appreciate it. Again, thank you all for watching. Until next time, take care.